Alright guys, welcome back. Today we're going to be going over the final exam study guide. So this is the last ever thing you have to do in this class, which is very exciting. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first question asks us, is this a function or is it not a function? So when we're looking at A and B here, we're going to use the vertical line test. And if you think about dragging a pencil vertically across the graph, does that pencil hit more than one point on that graph at any given time? So we'll use this y-axis as our vertical line here, and you'll notice we have a point here, here, and here. So this one is definitely not a function. All right, but with B, if you imagine dragging a pencil vertically across this graph, we're not touching more than one point on this graph at any given time, which makes it a function. All right, so C and D, hopefully you guys still remember, but when we're looking at tables to figure out if it's a function or not, we're really focusing in on those x values. So we don't want any repeating x values with different y values. And what I mean by that is we can have the same x value as long as the y value is the same, as long as it's the same point. But if it is a new point, then it is not a function. So on C, we have 0, 8, -2, and 6. So none of those x values repeat. So we really don't even have to look at those y values. We know that this one is going to be a function. D, however, we have 4, 3, 4, and 6. So we have 4 on here twice. Now, if the y values were the same, that would be okay, but we have 6 and we have 2, so it is not a function. If they were both 4 and 6, that would be okay, but because they're different, the y values are different, it's not a function. All right, number 2 says the function f of x is graphed below. Find the values of each of the following. So I want you guys to remember that we are looking for ordered pairs when this kind of question comes up. And if it's inside the parentheses, it is an x value. So all of this top row, those are x values. And when it's outside of the equal sign, f of x equals a number, that is your y value. So we're going to be looking for that point on the graph and give its matching y value or x value. So f of -4, right? So our -4 is right here, and the point with that x value is up 2, so -4 and 2. F of 0, so where x equals 0, right, which is crossing right at that 0, 0 point. F of 2, so our x value of 2, we have to go down 2 to get to the line, so it is 2, -2. And then B, E, and D again, that must be a typo, are also y values, right? So we're looking for the matching x value. So we have f of x equals 0. So where on this y-axis do we have 0? It's right here. And we already have one point there. That's 0, 0. But if you notice, as we drag across, we also have -5 and 0. All right? F of x equals -2. So we have -2 right here. And we're looking across. And this is a point we've already found, which is 2, -2. And the last one, we have f of x equals 5. So we're looking for our y value of 5, which is all the way at the top up here, and you'll notice that there is nothing that high, so there is no solution here. All right, number 3 says simplify each of the following. So we just did this. It should be fresh on your mind, hopefully, and we need to find a perfect square that will go into 72, that 72 is divisible by, in order to break it down into the simplest form, right? So 72 is divisible by 36, which we know is a perfect square. So we'll say 36 times 2. The square root of 36 is 6, and that square root of 2 will stay on the inside. All right, so square root of 225, well, this is actually a perfect square. And you can type this in your calculator and check for yourself, but the square root of 225 is 15. And then before I talk about C, not number, let's talk about the fact that you can plug this into your calculator if you're unsure. Always double check to make sure you're not working with the perfect square, especially if it's a larger number that you're not used to seeing or memorizing as a perfect square, like 225, for example. But the square root of 80, we know is not a perfect square, but if you're not sure what it is divisible by, remember that your calculator will help you with that. So if you go to your y equals and you say 80 divided by x, and then you look at your table, it will show you all of the numbers that 80 is divisible by. And out of those numbers, you're looking specifically for the square roots. So in this case, 80 is going to be divisible by 16. So 16 times 5. The square root of 16 is 4. And that square root of 5 is going to stay. All right, number 4 says to solve for x. We have 5 plus x over 3 equals 7. So remember that we use those order of operations in reverse. We called it SADMEG. All right, so we're going to start with subtraction, then addition, and so on and so forth. The opposite of what you're usually used to. So we're going to start by getting rid of this 5, right? So we're going to subtract 5 from both sides. And then to get x by itself, we got to get rid of this 3. So x is being divided by 3. To undo that, we're going to multiply by 3. So x equals 6. Right? Same thing for b. We have 5 plus x over 3 equals 7. Now, one thing I want to point out is that this 5 plus x is a grouping altogether above this 3 in the numerator. So we're not going to move that 5 yet. We have to get rid of that 3 first. So that 3 is being divided, so we're going to multiply it out. And then now this group we can go into. So to get x by itself, we'll subtract 5. And x equals 16. All right, number 5 says use the distributive property or a generic rectangle to write each of the following in standard form. All right, so I'm going to start, I'm going to do A by using the generic rectangle just to refresh you guys on that. It's been a minute since we've done it. So you're just going to make a box with enough room for all of your numbers. So we have x plus 3 and we have x minus 5. Remember to bring that minus sign and treat it like negative 5. All right, so we have x times x gives us x squared. X times 3, 3x. Negative 5 times x is negative 5x. And then negative 5 times 3 is negative 15. And then all we have to do is combine our like terms, which is 3x and negative 5x. So we have x squared minus 2x minus 15. All right, for B, I'm actually just going to use the distributive property to show you both ways. But remember, for example, we have x plus 4 squared. So when you have that squared, what we're really saying is x plus 4 times x plus 4. So we're going to write that out. All right, and then we're going to use the FOIL method. So we're going to go first, outer, inner, and last. Okay, we need to multiply each number correctly. So we have x times x gives us x squared. X times 4 gives us 4x. 4 times x gives us 4x. And 4 times 4 gives us 16. And then we just need to combine our like terms. So we get x squared plus 8x plus 16. All right, number 6 says solve for y and then find the slope. So what we're doing is putting these back into slope-intercept form, which will tell us the slope. It's not something we're going to have to solve after we solve for y. The slope will be given there for us. So we're trying to get y by itself, so we need to get rid of this 3x first. So we're going to add it. and then we're going to divide by 2. Right, so 3 divided by 2, we're going to leave that as a fraction, and 8 divided by 2 gives us 4. All right, so this is our solve for y part, but if you remember y equals mx plus b, we know that that m is our slope. So we don't even have to do anything, it's given to us. Our slope is 3 over 2. All right, we'll do the same thing for b. So we're going to start by getting rid of that x. So we're going to subtract x. And now we divide by negative 4. Alright, so remember that this variable without a number in front of it is really like a 1. So this is negative 1 divided by negative 4. So negative divided by negative is going to make that positive, but we are going to leave it as a fraction. And then 32 divided by negative 4 gives us negative 8. Once again, you can pull your slope from that, which is 1/4. All right, 7 and 8 want us to find the slope of the line. One gave us 2 ordered pairs, and one gave us a table. So let's refresh our memories on how to solve those. So the formula for 2 ordered pairs is going to be y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Right, so let's label those. So we have x sub 1 and y sub 1, and x sub 2 and y sub 2. So then we just have to plug it in. So we have negative 5 minus 8 over 2 minus negative 1. Be careful with your signs there. All right, and then we just need to solve it. So negative 5 minus 8 gives us negative 13. And 2 minus negative 1, that's 2 plus 1, which is 3. And we can't do anything else to simplify that, so this is your answer, negative 13 over 3. All right, let's look at 8. This is a table, and what we're going to do is subtract backwards. So the x values, you can tell pretty much how these are spaced out, but let's just double check. 2 minus 1 is 1. 1 minus 0 is 1. 0 minus negative 1, that's 0 plus 1, is 1. Negative 1 minus negative 2, that's negative 1 plus 2, so it's also 1. And then the bottom should be the same all the way across as well. So negative 7 minus negative 2, that's negative 7 plus 2, it's 5. Negative 2 minus 3, negative 5. 3 minus 8, negative 5. And 8 minus 13, negative 5. All right, number 9 says to find the vertex of the quadratic function. So the main thing to remember here when you're given this table like this is that we're looking at twin points, right? So the quadratic means we've got some sort of parabola, so we're going to have twin points. And what you're looking at is that y value to be the same. So we've got negative 20 and negative 13. Obviously, they don't match up, but let's just pretend that this number isn't there. We've got negative 20, negative 20, negative 25, negative 25, so those add up. So we'll just mark until we find our center. Negative 8, negative 20, negative 3, negative 20, right? Negative 25, negative 28, and then we're left with our vertex. All right, number 10, determine if the following sequences are arithmetic, geometric, or neither. All right, so remember with arithmetic, we're going to subtract. With geometric, we're going to divide, and then obviously neither means it won't work either way. So let's see, we've got negative 5, negative 2, 1, 4, 7, and 10. All right, so we don't have huge amounts of growth. So let's start by trying to subtract backwards. So 10 minus 7, that gives us 3. 7 minus 4 also gives us 3. 4 minus 1, 3. We're looking pretty good so far. and 1 minus negative 2. Also 3, right, because that becomes plus 2. And negative 2 minus negative 5, you guessed it, 3. Right, so I'm just going to write this here so we have this as notes for you guys to look back on. So we subtracted backwards for arithmetic. All right, let's look at B. So we have, let's start by subtracting. So 17 minus 13, that gives us 4. 13 minus 11, that gives us 2. So we're already off the course there. Let's try dividing. So I don't think that's going to work, but we never know. So 17 divided by 13 gives us 1.3. 13 divided by 11 gives us 1.18. So we've already lost that as well. So if it's not arithmetic or geometric, it has to be neither. All right, so since this is a study guide, we've already used arithmetic and neither, I'm going to check this to be geometric first, which would make sense. We went from negative 27 to negative 1 within the course of 4 numbers. So those rapid changes in numbers usually give you the idea that this is geometric. So let's try dividing. So when you divide negative 1 from negative 1 divided by negative 3, we get negative 1 divided by negative 3 gives us 1/3. Negative 3 divided by negative 9, also 1/3, so I'm happy about that. Negative 9 divided by negative 27, also 1/3, so that worked out for us. So we divided back, which left us geometric. All right, number 11. Write and solve a system of equations for the following situation. Okay, so it's been a minute since we've done these. Wendy is starting a catering business and is attempting to figure out who she should hire to transport the food to different locations. She has found 2 trucking companies. Peter's Pickup charges 40 cents per mile and a flat fee of $68. Helen's Haulers charges 65 cents per mile plus a flat fee of $23. So let's start by defining our variables. So we're not looking at Peter's Pickup charges and Helen's Haulers. We're looking at the miles and versus how much that's going to cost us, right? That's what we're trying to figure out. So we've got X and Y. And remember, we've got an independent and a dependent. So the miles are going to be our independent, and that total cost is our dependent, so our Y value. All right, so let's go ahead and write those into equations. So let's start with Peter's Pickup. Right, so 40 cents per mile, that is our rate word. That tells us that is our rate of change. And a flat fee means everybody's getting charged $68 regardless of how many miles they travel, right? So that's our initial value. So it's going to be Y equals 0.40x plus $68, right? The same concept applies to Helen's Haulers. So we are 65 cents per mile with a flat fee of $23. All right, so now we can answer some questions. For what distance would the cost of transporting the food be the same for both companies? All right, so we need to set these equal to each other and then solve. So 0.40x plus 68 equals 0.65x plus 23. And now what we're doing is solving for x. So let's start by subtracting 23 from both sides. We're just combining like terms. And then we also need to get that x over there. So we're going to subtract 0.40x. And we're going to divide by 0.25 to solve for x. So 45 divided by 0.25 gives us 180. So the answer would be 180 miles. All right, and then it asks us what is the equal cost. So you can just plug that in, 0.40. Let's see, 0.40 times 180 plus 68. That gives us 140. So if you say 0.40 times 180 plus 68, so that gave us 140. Let's double check the other one. 0.65 times 180 plus 23 also gave us 140. So that means we did the right math here. All right, number 12. Given the box and whiskers plot below, find the median Q1, Q3, and IQR. Remember that's our quartile range and our first and third quartile. Oh, hold on, I just dropped my pen. All right, so that box tells us everything that we need to know, right? We've got our minimum, our first quartile, and then remember that this is going to be the median or your second quartile. We have our third, and we have our max. So we can go ahead and label a few things. So our median, obviously, is going to be 14. Our first quartile is going to be 8. Our third is going to be 16. And then we need to find our inner quartile range. Remember that this is forgetting about the minimum and the maximum. So it would be the third quartile minus the first, so 16 minus 8. I'm going to write that out for you. Which gives us 8. All right, and then the last question says to find the mean, median, and mode for the data set and to round to the nearest tenth. Okay. All right, the last question we have is number 13. I know my computer looks a little different. I wanted to pull the calculator up to show you these. So remember that we're going to use, oh my gosh, we're going to use stat as a way to organize our data and get some information about it. So let's start by just entering that. So you hit stat and we hit enter so that we have this. And I've already entered all of these in there, but let's double check. All right, all good. So the first thing I want to do is actually get these in order. So the way to do that, you're going to hit stat and then sort. And we're going to hit second stat again to pull up that first list. All right, notice it says done. So when we go back, it should all be in order now, which it is. Now we can go over to calculate, and we want that first one. We're going to hit enter through all of that. And then hopefully you remember that this X bar, this first number that it gives us, is actually our mean. So our mean here is 41.4. It says round to the nearest tenth, which is 1 decimal place. So that's why we're going to say 41.4. All right, our median is going to be that number in the middle, so you can go back and look at your list. Counting how many numbers we have, 1, 2, 3, 13. So it's going to be that 42 right there. Remember, the median is that number in the middle. And then mode, so our number that occurs the most. And that's why putting this in order helps so much, because you can get a visual and look. So we have 3 37s. If we don't have 3 of anything else, then that should be it. Yep, so our mode is going to be 37. All right, guys, that is it for your study guide review. Good luck on your final exam, and I hope you guys have a wonderful summer break, and we'll see you back next year.